Hey everyone, welcome to Catfish Weekly. Thanks for joining us. I know we missed last week due to some illnesses. We still got a few illnesses going around through the Catfish Weekly crew here, but we got Chuck Davidson with us and myself, Chris Wallace, aka FUD. Tonight we're going to be talking about um, getting started into tournament catfishing. Basically some boat rigging, some live wells, things that might be the basics getting started into. I go into a little bit of some advanced stuff or some better stuff to keep the catfish alive or whatnot. This topic was asked for by Seth McAllister on the Catfish Weekly Facebook page. So Seth, I know this isn't everything that you were wanting to get covered, but we're just going to try to cover a few things at a time when we can. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Chuck and let him get started on talking a little bit about some boat rigging, and then I might jump in there a little bit and we'll talk about the boat rigging to start it off. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, if you decide you want to go out and get in a catfish tournament, it really don't cost a whole lot of money. You just if you don't have your rod holders already, which is usually a must, go out and get what you think you need. Along with mounts, good rod holders will probably cost you about $30 a piece. Get you 4 or 6 of those. Um, get you a live well that's going to accommodate the fish in the body of water that you're going to be fishing in. If you're going to be fishing the Tennessee River, you're going to need at least I would say, 100-gallon stock tank, because you're going to be catching large blue catfish. In Alabama, you can have two over 34 inches, and most tournaments is a 5 fish limit, and you'll have three under 34. So if you got a couple of 50-pound fish, wouldn't it that's not very hard to do on the Tennessee River, and you get three about 20 pounds, that'll take up a lot of room. But if you're uh, going to fish a channel cat tournament, or some flatheads thrown in the mix, you might not need but about a 60-gallon stock tank, or a large Rubbermaid container, or maybe a 150 quart cooler. Um, Along with that, you'd probably need a couple of pumps, one to pump out, one to pump in, to to keep the water fresh, keep some oxygen and some bubbles in the water. I also use this small little um, bait tank pump. It's just a little fray bill pump. It just puts a little bit of bubbles in the water, but um, on real hot days, when the water temperature is up, 90, 95 degrees, which isn't very hard down here in the south, it's the water, depletes the oxygen really quick, and you need all the help you can get. So I hang a couple of those off into my tank. I don't have stones or anything like that in my tank, so that'll help a lot. I just rig my live well up like a regular bait tank in a boat. I have a uh, drain tube on the inside of my live well, and I just put whatever length PVC pipe in it on whatever height I want my water to be in the live well. Uh, so my tank's 24 inches tall. If I want a halfway full, I'll stick a 12-inch PVC pipe down in the drain. I'll just pump into the live well and just let it automatically drain all the time as I'm pumping. And uh, what few fish I've had in it, I've never lost one, and they've always been kicking when I've got them out.
Well, before we go much into the live well part of it, can you talk a little bit about some of the other things for rigging for on the boat for catfish tournaments?
Yeah, it depends. Everybody says in the summertime, um, leave your anchor at home. Just you don't need it. Just drift fish. But um, I've been in situations before where you're gonna need that anchor even in the summer. So I always bring my anchor with me. You know, electronics is a must these days, especially if you're fishing bodies of water that you haven't grown up around. You need to know what depths. You need to be able to find channel edges, and you need to be able to find bait fish so you'll know where the fish you're targeting are hanging out around the bait fish or whatever. Um, make sure your rods and reels are equipped for the size catfish you're targeting. You wouldn't want to go fish, a catfish tournament with some Zebco 33s if you're going to be fishing on the Tennessee River. Um, but if you go on a channel cat tournament and that's all you got, you might want to throw you some 17-pound line on a Zebco 33, and you might can do pretty good just to get out and see how you do. But it's really no fun unless you have the equipment on your boat that's going to handle the size fish that you're targeting, because everybody knows sometime in their life they've got a hold of a fish and it's instantly snapped their line and they're like, I wonder what that was. You don't want to be in that situation. You want to have that equipment on your boat. You want to have that rod and reel. You want to have that line on that rod and reel, so when that fish hits again, um, you can get him in the boat and you know what you had.
But a little bit, I want to chime in. You first started talking about anchors. Um, One thing I suggest is if you're looking to get into catfishing, look at what waters you're going to be fishing. Start getting as much research you can in about the types of waters you're going to be fishing in, what kind of bottoms there's going to be. If you want a good all-around anchor, if you want an anchor that's good for grabbing on rock, if you want one that's good at grabbing on sand or gravel, there's different types of anchors out there that are going to do uh, better in different scenarios. Um, I believe myself and Chuck both have a Cat River anchor. It's a really good all-around anchor that can be um, flailed out in different. Doesn't have to be as wide if you want a good, solid, strong grip into some rock or something. But if you got some sand or a muddy bottom, you can take the flanges and push them out and get a little better grip into a softer bottom. But there's other anchor companies like Never Snag, Richter. There's lots of different ones out there. Pretty much it's do like I said, the research about what kind of water you're going to be fishing, or if you just want a good all around anchor. Um, and really look for something that's going to fit you, and then think about the size of boat you have. Different size boat might require a heavier anchor than what one of the companies might offer, so you might need to go something bigger. The type of boat, deep V's, Johns, they're also going to hold a little different with anchors. So just sort of try to figure out exactly what kind of bottom you're going to be using, um, the current that you're going to be in, the type of boat that you have. Take all those things into consideration when choosing an anchor. Uh, yeah. Also, the length of your anchor line, you pretty much want to have. They recommend, I think it's 3 times the depth of whatever you're anchored in. So, say you're in 20 foot of water, they say you should have 60 foot of rope out. I myself don't always go by that rule, but that's the recommended thing to do there. So most of the time, most guys have 100, even 200 foot of rope on their boat with their anchor. Good thing also to keep it up on the front of the boat, keep it all organized. You can go to like a Tractor Supply or Rural King or something like that, and they have plastic round bowl things that you can throw your anchor rope and your anchor in and keep it all up in there and out of the way and as organized as possible. Or even a bucket. Some people put it all in a bucket and throw it in there. But go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, I use a milk crate, which water can drain right out, and it does really good also. Um, I suggest to go purchase a couple of different size drift socks and get out and play with them and learn how to use them. Um, they will really help, if, especially fishing lakes. Um, you never know what the weather's going to do. They'll say there's not going to be any wind, and um, they never know what the conditions are going to be, especially on a lake. Most time a lake seems like it generates wind, especially when you get up on the bigger lakes like Gunnersville, um, Wilson and Wheeler. Um, a 5 mile an hour breeze, it can start picking up some big swells, and it's hard to anchor down in the lakes, especially when the wind's blowing the opposite direction, and and you can't afford a trolling motor at the time. But really, a trolling motor is the way to go, especially when the water temperature is up above 50, 55 degrees. Instead of just trying to find the fish and sitting on them and trying to catch them out of a so-called hole or whatever. You can actually maneuver around and drift around and try to find the fish and go to them instead of waiting on them to come to you, which it helps me a lot better. Um, there's been some good trolling motors come out lately. Motor Guide has one that has a little remote control and 55-pound thrust, 70-pound thrust. Minn Kota's got the co-pilot, the iPilot. Um, since I purchased the iPilot, I saved up for it forever. Just things like that aren't cheap, and they just don't grow on trees. I don't think I can do without the iPilot fishing anymore because I'm so used to it, and they have a feature on there called Spot Lock, um, and you can if you're drift fishing and you come up on a spot where you're getting a lot of hits, um, you can hit spot lock and you can stay in that little 5-10 foot general vicinity and see what bites you're going to get. If you don't get any, you can take off trolling again. If a fish starts going after, starts taking your line down while you're drifting, you can just hit the spot lock. Instead of him keep chasing it down, you can just sit for a minute, see if he's going to take it. But that's a really good feature that does not really break the bank. You have to save up for it. But that's probably the biggest asset I have in my boat now is the iPilot. It's not linked to the electronics, nothing fancy like that. It's just a little bit more advanced than a co-pilot. You can save a few tracks on it, go back and trace those tracks later. But you really don't need stuff like that to fish, in the tournaments. It's just after you get something like that, you just get spoiled and don't want to fish without it anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in there on that a little bit since I am sponsored by Humminbird and I have a lot of their top end gadgets that basically that they have out. I have on my boat right now, with the iPilot link being one, the Tarova. I have the 80-pound Tarova. I had the 101 before. I have 1199 fish finder, the 360. A lot of these things you don't have to have them to tournament fish, and just because I have them, I'm not going out there and winning all the time. I mean, it's something where it really does take a lot of time on the water with them, and a lot of sitting at home watching videos, learning, reading about what these electronics and things can do. Um, because you're only as good as what you know about it. If you don't know how to use any part of it, then you kind of wasted your money buying it. If you're not utilizing that equipment correctly, then you might as well not even have bought it. So it really does take a long time. I mean, I've had 1198 and 1199 going on 2.5 years, and I still can't say that I know everything that it does. Um, but some of the I guess what I would say after really, if I decided I was really going to get into tournament fishing, one of the things that I would say that I would recommend that anybody that's serious into it get would be a like a Tarova with an iPilot, the remote controlled uh, um, trolling motor system. Remote controlled trolling motor system makes catfishing, especially trolling, drifting, um, which are both very well used techniques in the catfishing tournament world a whole lot easier. Now, when you take it and you go advanced beyond just the regular trolling and you get into things like I was talking about with the 1199 and the iPilot Link with my Tarova, there's things like follow the contour, which is basically it'll show you on an HD map or on your fish finder, your Humminbird fish finder, it'll have a contour line and it'll show you like the 10-foot ledge and the 20-foot ledge or 15-foot ledge, then the 20-foot ledge, then the 25-foot ledge. You can tell your fish finder, I want to run right along across that 20 foot ledge and basically just keep it there. And you can tell it, I want it to go this direction. I want it to go this fast. So I mean, pretty much you can, instead of sitting there and foot controlling a trolling motor to keep you in, an area that you hope is the right area, your fish finder shows you that exact area where that ledge is at. Your trolling motor basically computes everything, does everything for you, drives itself, automatically pilots itself at the exact speed that you want to go. So if you want to be drifting at 0.8 miles an hour, you can tell it, cruise control 0.8 miles an hour on follow the contour on this 25-foot line. It takes you down that line. Now, what I do is I go and if I'm looking for fish, I go starting at the bank and just work my way out until I start marking fish on the fish finder. If I seen, no fish at 5 feet, see no fish at 10 feet, start seeing fish at 15 feet, get out to 20, 25 feet, stop not seeing fish again, I'll probably drift that 15-foot ledge for a while and see how that does for me. But yeah, as far as the electronics, the iPilot, the handheld remote controlled trolling system is almost mandatory in my book. And I know there's for Minn Kota, there's two of the brands that you'd probably come across would be a Power Drive and a Tarova. Um, there's a little bit of difference in the Power Drive and the Tarova. I know one is the deployment system. The deployment system on Tarova is a lot easier than the Power Drive. The Power Drive works. It's just it takes a little, getting used to and some muscle and figuring out how to get that thing to deploy down. And it locks in a lot tighter than what the Tarova does, but it's a little stiffer getting out. So um, as far as the other features, it's not as much difference. I mean, like I said, I prefer Tarova just for that, but they are mighty expensive. But like I said, they're one of the things that are almost key and fundamental in tournament fishing now. But go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, you know, drift socks, anchoring, um, and a good trolling motor. It just depends on how you're going to fish that day, the time, the time of the year, and if you're going to be fishing a river, a lake, whatever. A lot of times, we'll get out on the um Tennessee River. The wind will be blowing 15 miles an hour, big swells. It's blowing upriver, so currents point, spin your boat around. You can use your drift socks to deploy out the back, the current to keep your boat pulled straight. And it'll help the current of fight that wind and keep you from blowing around. Um, I've tried to use that two anchor thing. It's always turned out bad. I never like using a back anchor at all. I really don't like anchoring at all if I can keep from it. But um, a lot what I've been doing mostly now since I've got the spot lock is just instead of controlled anchoring or precision anchoring where I'll find a location that I think's holding fish and you know if I during the winter time and I'm will cast out on them. Now I just use my spot lock and I'll just hover over those areas, which is a lot better. Um, but you know, I've seen a lot of guys drift fishing using the hand controlled trolling motors. They don't. I had one. for a long time. It seemed to work great as long as you got, if you've got your rods spread out on the boat, which don't want them too close together anyway. And most guys only use 4 to 6 rods. So if you got one guy in the back of the boat, one guy in the front, um, a hand controlled trolling motor does fine to get you around. You may have to mount a unit up front so you can see, what your navionics, stay on your contour lines or whatever. But um, if you just need something to get started, I much prefer hand controlled over a foot pedal any day.
Now, what would you now talking about boat rigging a little bit more? Um, how would you say you set up your rod holders? Like, do you think it's a necessity to have a rod rack across the back of the boat, or
No, I don't like rod racks at all. I have a larger T-bar, which it don't stick out much further than the width of my motor. It comes up about as tall as my motor, and I've got it moved in on my deck enough to where when I tilt my motor back, the motor don't touch it because I have got to get to the back corners of my boat very quick. I don't need a rod rack in the way. I don't need to, have to pass rods under a rod, all that stuff. So, I have the T bar in the middle. Then I have my two corner locations, and then I move up the boat, 4 feet, 5 feet. I've got two more locations, and then I got two more locations on the front third of the boat.
now what I
Uh,
see a lot of the guys in my neck of the woods, you go to a tournament, you're going to see typically 6 rod holders either on a rod rack or some spread across the whole back of the boat. Then you're going to see a multitude of between 5 and 6 rod holders up each side, to the front. Um, and a lot of guys, what they're doing there is giving themselves a nice spread. Like for you're saying, you don't want too many rods um, close to each other, because when you're drifting, your point is to cover as much water and drag those baits across the biggest space of water as possible, because you're trying to find those feeding fish. So if you've got rods 3 feet apart going across one whole side of the boat, and your boat's 18 foot long, you might be covering 24, 25 foot of water, with a complete spread of drifting down that ledge. Whereas if you just put like 2 rods off the back and you're trolling or something, you're really only covering about 4 or 5 foot of water.
yeah, and you got to think your rods are, let's say 8 foot long. Your boat's 8 foot wide, so from tip to tip, from side to side, it's 25 foot. So that's about the furthest your rods are apart. Um, down the side of your boat, when you're drifting, um, the slight differences in your bait can make a pretty good difference. But the big key is make sure you use the same amount of sinkers and weight on every pole, because you don't want some heavy sinkers straight down in the back or downriver, or in the direction that you're drifting, and then you've got some light sinkers that are able to swing back into your other line. So you want to make sure that everything's got the same amount of weight on them.
Also, the type and diameter of line will make a difference on how those. Uh, you can have the same weight even on, but have a smaller diameter line, and that line might actually cut through the water a little better, hold a little straighter than something that's a little thicker might. So
Yeah, correct. And your bait also. You can have a large head on one, and you can have a big you know chunk of steak on another, and you can have the exact same sinker weight, same size line, and everything, and you'll be able to tell a big difference in the drag on that bait. So you want to keep those rods spread out and around the boat when drifting, um, because you're 30, 30, 35, 40 foot down sometimes when you're on these channel edges, or out in the channel edge. When you're up in the flats, fishing 12, 15 foot, it's not as critical. But when them big blues hit at 30, 35 feet, he can have every rod in your boat wrapped up in a matter of 30 seconds. It don't take him but a minute to do it. So, um, you want to be able to, try to get them things spread out as far as possible. It's still going to happen, but a lot of times when I drift, I only use 4 poles
Yeah.
for that reason, and I'll put two up front and two in the back, and sometimes they still make a run and get you tangled up if you can't turn him around in time.
Yeah. Just try to get off boat rigging here in a few, but I got a couple more things that you probably want to have in the boat if you're going out tournament fishing. Have a have a multitude of knives out and about, especially if you're going to be in any sort of river with a good current. You want to have a knife up by an anchor rope. Um, there's times where stuff can get very hairy very quick, and you might need to cut that anchor rope before, say, a tree grabs a hold of your anchor rope line and it's going to pull the front of your boat down. It ain't trying. You don't have time to try to pull that anchor and get it out. You just need to cut it. You need to have a knife handy. Most points of your boat, try to keep a knife around. Um, as far as other things on the boat that you definitely want to have. I like to keep a lot of pair of scissors. I keep a pair of scissors both sides of the boat for quick rigging. Retying rigs and whatnot. I normally do keep already tied rigs, but trimming off edges and stuff when you're tying a knot. Just to be able to grab a pair of scissors that's sitting on both sides of the boat, really quick. When you're out there fishing in tournaments, a lot of time, time is, time that you don't have a bait in the water is time wasted. So you can have things that are ready to get you back in the water as soon as possible. Um, that'd probably be the best. Um, let's go ahead and you can talk real quick about the giveaway that you're doing, and then I'll talk a little bit about some of the people that are posted on Catfish Weekly. So go ahead with that.
Yeah, we got these 50-pound Rapala scales. Um, we're giving away two of them at the end of June. All you have to do is post on the Catfish Weekly group or the Catfish Weekly fan page, and just put a picture of you holding a fish up there, and just say, "Looky, looky, what I got," or whatever. Show your kids holding some fish, and we're just going to pick a couple random people and send these scales to them.
All right, and there, yeah, we've had quite a few people that have posted on the site. Darren Fuller posted. Austin Tibbetts have posted. He's got some nice blues. He posted some pictures of. Josh and his son Dalton. Um, Hackathorn. Dalton got his first little flathead. Posted a picture over there. It was a good job on that. Robert Jackson also mentioned that he loves drinking his coffee and watching Catfish Weekly. So we appreciate that, Robert. Um, Probably ain't nothing better, I would have to say. But we want to thank everybody there that's posting on the Catfish Weekly. I'm sure there's plenty more that I posted on there. These are just a few of the random ones that I picked here recently posted. Um, so again, we appreciate you guys watching the show. We hope to keep it going for a long time. And you guys got any thing you want to see on here, just let us know. And keep posting the pictures and posting some stories and stuff on the Catfish Weekly Facebook page. We appreciate it. Going on, we're going to talk a little bit now about the live wells. And before we get going here, I'm going to do a screen share just to I know that Chuck had already talked a little bit about the different kinds of woo to Millennium. All right, catfish live wells. You're going to see on my screen here for the Google images. You type in catfish live well. A lot of what I make is this first one here, which is a truck box. You can go get them at Tractor Supply Company. You can buy them off Craigslist. Normally the used ones off Craigslist, you're going to need to do a lot of cleaning to get those to work. But you know the new ones are better. So you can get one that's normally they're a little more expensive. They're $200 or so for those 45, 55 ones, and they're normally about 20, 25 inches wide and deep. But they make, I think, an excellent live well. Um, you can permanently mount pumps into and out of, and they do take up a lot of space in a boat. But then again, for tournament catfishing, just about every live well that you're going to use is going to take up a good amount of space. The other options that you have are something like this right here, which is a like a horse trough. This is um, 100-gallon. Is that what you call it, Chuck? Is a horse trough or
Yeah, stock tank.
stock tank? Yep, 100-gallon stock tank. About an 80-gallon stock tank is about minimum for what I'd say. I mean, because you're not going to fill these all the way to the top. I mean, you never should need to fill them all the way because that's going to be a lot of weight. And also, if you get going up and down the river with any speed whatsoever, you hit any wake, a lot of that water is going to be all over the place. So normally you fill them up about halfway. You can do different things, put filters on them, inline filters like an Aqualung, or you know, building your own type of filter that would work for it. But you can do it two ways. You know, a lot of guys will take that stock tank and they'll build a lid like this guy here has done, a wood lid for them, so they can use these also as a bait tank. You know, for their bait when they're getting ready for tournaments, and then when they catch the fish, they throw them in there with the bait. Some guys will take those hoses or PVC pipe and they'll run them on the inside and drill the holes in them to run like a spray bar. I myself have not found that to be a very effective method of aeration. Matter of fact, this picture here is a video of mine in my garage from one of the first ones that I made. But you can actually go and have a custom live well made for your dimensions to fit there. But there's a lot of boat companies out there now that are starting to make catfish tournament ready boats that are 80 and 100-gallon live wells in them. So the other option that you can do is a cooler, like a 150 quart cooler, even a 120 quart cooler, depending on what type of catfish you're going for. If you're going for like channels or something, you know, 120 quart cooler might do all right. I'd probably say about 150 quart cooler be the minimum for a live well. You can normally go to about any Walmart and get that 150 quart cooler for, I want to say $60 or $70. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, you can just basically drill for a pump in. You can have one pump or you can have a two pump system. There's the one pump system would be you know, basically where you could drop a pump off the side of the boat that has been well electric, you know, all the electric wires and everything have been sealed and they're good to drop off the side of the boat with a long hose and run the water into the bait tank or live well. And then up at the top of the live well, you could have just a hose that with a run through that would drain out, you know, so that way you could keep it running and it would automatically drain out. And then you can take the hose and put it on the inside of the live well and pump all the water out when you need to get it out faster and do a water change that way. It's a little bit slower, but a little bit more cost effective if you're just starting out. Or the two pump system, you know, you have one pump that you can drop over the side of the boat, or it might even be if you've got a boat where you can get to the wires or to the hoses that are plumbed into your existing live wells, you can use that to pump in and then another one to pump out. But most of these things you're going to need another 12-volt battery handy or right by that live well to keep that going. If From what Chuck was talking about a little bit earlier about that 95-degree water, From what I've seen, a lot of guys like to do is you don't want to take um, ice and throw it in there. It's better to take like a few frozen 2 liter bottles or Gatorade bottles and have them in a cooler or have them, somewhere that keep them frozen until it's time to. You can throw them in that water and cool that water down a little bit, and it doesn't cool it down too fast. Um, let's see here. But yeah, if there's anything else that you want to throw in there on the live wells, you can go ahead, Chuck.
Well, I made mine a continuous drain. I have, where the drain is on the bottom of the stock tank. I screwed on a 90-degree PVC fitting, and however much water I want in my live well. I didn't glue my 90. I just stick whatever length piece of PVC. I stick it in there, and I have one cut at 6 inches, 8 inches, 12 inches, and I just leave them floating in the bottom of the live well. And if I need more water, I just pull it out, stick another one in there real quick, and just get my level that way. And I'm continuously pumping water in, and it's continuously draining out, and it seems to be working pretty good for now. And on my pump, on the outlet of a pump, I drilled a hole going toward the outlet on the outer flange at a 45-degree angle. I took a piece of rubber tube and I stuck in that hole, and I took that small piece of hose and I leave it hanging out of the live well. When that water pumps out the outlet of that pump, it pulls air through that small hose, which gets a lot more air pumping in with your water, and it helps put a lot more oxygen in your water that way. That's a quick, easy way I read up doing it, and I gave it a try, and it works really good.
Yeah, I'll have to. At some point I'll probably take some pictures and stuff of how I did mine. Um, both of my last live wells, I've used the power bubbler. That's the 12-volt power bubbler. It has two outputs on it, and I run two of those. They're like a micro stone that puts out a lot of fine bubbles and into the water, which is that air. And I keep that anytime I have fish, even my bait, my bait fish in that live well, I can just turn that on, and it uses very little juice, and I can keep fish alive, for quite a long time using that power bubbler that has the two stones on, and I keep one stone on each end of the tank. There are a lot of people that do a recirculating system too, and that could be used with that spray bar that I was talking about earlier. Now, like I said, I used it at once and I stopped doing it, so I don't do that anymore. But if we're talking just getting started into catfishing, there's your basic things that you're going to need are going to be your live well, and I would say again, do your research on what type of water you're going to be tournament fishing. If you're going to be fishing um, a lot of tournaments, and that you're going to be fishing where the water where big fish are at, you're talking 30-pound fish or so, you're going to need something like I said, that 80 gallon or bigger size, and you're going to want to make sure that you're able to keep that water cool and keep that water clean, especially if you use that bait tank at all for shad or anything like that. Shad put off a lot of scales and stuff into the water, and you probably couldn't even put too many in there and keep them alive in there at the same time anyway without a very good microfilter. But for things like that, you definitely want to plan out accordingly, and then get the size of live well. If it's just going to be a few tournaments here and there on the lakes nearby, and it's mostly just channel catfish and occasional flathead, a 150 quart cooler might be what's best for you to get started and cheaper and to get your feet wet in the tournament. And yeah, we got Ron Streeter in the chat said that the spray bar will clog up a lot on you, which it does do that. But But yeah, like I said, the 150 quart cooler, if you're just going to do local channel cat tournaments and stuff like that, it should be just fine. You could pop that in the front of the boat in a lot of boats, in the back of the boat. It's got a lot of places it could sit at. Normally, plenty of water in there, and most live wells in your boats today, not being a tournament catfish specific boat, isn't going to have anything bigger than a probably a 40 or 50 gallon live well. Most of them are going to be 40 or under, and that might even be good for a few fish, but I would still say get yourself a bigger live well, um, like a cooler, because they're just a little. I think the design, the layout, the width of them will be a little better than those 40-gallon live wells that are built in the boats. Uh, but definitely don't overspend on something that if you don't know if it's for you or whatever. As far as tournament catfishing goes, get into a few tournaments, try to see if it's something that you're really enjoying, if you like doing it. Talk to the guys. I would say most likely if you get into it, you're going to enjoy it, because most catfish guys are real easy to talk to. They have a good time. And tournament catfishing isn't sitting out in the boat and going to sleep and drinking a beer. That's not how it goes. I mean, if you're really seriously tournament catfishing, you're not sitting in any spot for any more than 45 minutes. Some guys won't even sit in a spot for any more than 20 minutes. They're constantly moving, they're constantly changing baits, they're constantly trying to figure out where the fish are at, or where the big fish are at, or where a flathead is at, or depending on what they're going for and what you're doing, you have to work if you want to do it. If you want to do any good, unless you're just sitting there catching fish, all kinds of fish, you normally are going to be moving quite a bit. So, but you never want to leave fish to find fish, is what I've always been told to do and or not to do. And I don't know if Chuck, are you locked up, or you? I think we lost Chuck. But also, real quick, I'll talk about a culling system. If you're going to do tournaments where you're fishing and catching a lot of channel cats, things like that, a culling system is something that you probably want to have in the boat and keep handy. Um, Culling system, you can get it like Bass Pro Shops. They have them already made up. It's basically a clip, has a little notebook in it, or you can write, with each color clip. There's 10 clips, all have a different color. You can write like the purple clip fish. You clip it on his lip, and that fish was 2.5 pounds, and write it in your notebook. And then you can look in your live well, grab whichever one your smallest fish is, take that clip out, put that clip in the next fish that you caught, and then change the weight up in your little notebook and keep track of your weights that way. I will tell you this, that I fished a tournament with 108 boats this year where I lost first place by 4 ounces. I had 30 something fish in my live well, and I just eyeballed them and picked out 10 of my fish that I thought were the good size, and pretty much ended up losing first place by 4 ounces. And I went back to my live well, and I know that I had 4 or 5 fish that were bigger than some of the fish that I had weighed in. So if I'd have had a culling system for that tournament, I would have won first place for sure. So it is something that it's worth the investment. They're normally only 30 or 40 bucks, or even cheaper, and you can even make homemade versions. I'm sure if you look on Google and do a homemade culling system, you'd find some different ideas to do there. Um, yeah, also, Ron had a good comment about if you're using that cooler as a live well, keep that cooler lid cracked a little bit. You got to remember that the oxygen that is released from the water, the carbon monoxide that's released from water, I don't know, but whatever it is, it will build up in the lid and in the air pocket of that cooler, and will also kill off the fish, because that air is not being refreshed, and so you want to make sure that cooler lid is cracked or opened every once in a while, and get some fresh air in there. Maybe even drill some holes in the top of it, something like that, just to help keep the air circulated that's in there. Um, I believe there's a lot more that we can go into on live wells. There's adding oxygen infusers, small oxygen tanks that people put on their boat, help keep them alive, salt, a lot of different other things that are more advanced. But I think we're going to go ahead and call that good for this show tonight. I'll go ahead and let you guys know again that while each one of us individually are sponsored, the show itself um, isn't sponsored by any product or company or anything like that. We're basically just trying to help spread information on catfishing and have a good time and get people interested in it and really just not have all the politics and everything. As far as in the catfishing world, there's a lot of things going on. It looks like we got Chuck back here, but um, again, we do have some advertising space on catfishweekly.com. It's $50 for 6 months and $30 for 3 months, and you pretty much can, if you don't have the image, we can help you. I can help you get an image made for your company and get that put up on there. We want to thank Indiana Hunter and Black Horse Custom Rods right now are two advertisers that we have on the site right now. So go make sure you support our sponsors. Go check out their sites. Indiana Hunters um, just posting videos of catfishing and hunting and things like that in the state of Indiana. They're doing a lot of things right now, and he's a good guy. So go give them a visit and subscribe to him on YouTube, things like that. Again, Black Horse Custom Rods, Lyle, on the show here. Great guy, makes the best rods out there, best custom rods you could get for your money. So go check out his website. If you think you want to get a custom rod made, call him up. He'll get you set up for what you need. He won't just sell you something that he doesn't think is going to be right for you. So get it all customized just for you. So I'm basically just closing out here, Chuck. Is there anything that you wanted to go over before we go? Go ahead and do your closing statement.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody, Alabama Catfish Trail. We're going to be on Hoyt Lake July 12th. It's going to be a night tournament from 5 p.m. to 2 a.m. We're going to be launching out of Birchfield State Park. It's a really good fishery. The current 120-pound blue cat state record that just came out there a couple years ago. There's been some really nice fish coming out there, so I hope we have a pretty good participation on this. If you want any more information, you can just go to Alabama Catfish Trail on Facebook, and everything you need to know is on there.
That all you got?
Yeah, that'll be it.
I also wanted to make a quick note that Troy Jens, a guy, he's a cameraman and a good guy that I met down in Alabama when I went down to fish with Jonathan Herndon on catfish, maximum catfishing. I got to meet Troy Jens. Well, he's ended up gone missing about a week and a half ago. He's not been seen or heard from. Everybody's hoping that he's okay, and I want to put it out there that we're hoping for the best outcome on this. We hope Troy's found safe and everything turns out good, and we're here for you. If there's anything we can do, let us know. Besides that, I think we're good. So as I tell you every week, make sure you stay out of my spot. See you next time.